My name is Dennis Albaugh. I'm the owner of DRA Properties. We were awarded the 2015 Home Show, and we're excited to host that this summer. The last 3 or 4 years it's really taken off, and I'm loving the development. It was interesting for myself. It was a 1,100-acre site. We went through a bid process with the city to get the site. We were excited about it. When I originally looked at the site, it had dairy cattle on the operation, that Iowa State Research Farm. So it was a major challenge. It had a lot of concrete structures, and basically it was a big project, and I don't know, I guess I like challenges, is why I took on the project. I grew up just a mile east of Ankeny, and I'm a farm boy, raised on a farm. But real estate was always very intriguing to me. We did a little real estate development with 11 lots. Then I did a little bigger one when Barclay development and Fountain View development. We actually dug a 10-acre lake. Then this was the great big one, the 1,100 acres. We already knew what we were doing in the development business, and this was the major challenge. When we saw the renderings, I'm like, wow, can I ever reproduce this? We laid out original design. We actually came down to my offices and we took little blocks, and we actually built little houses, and we built an entire development out of that. And we've stayed right with that conceptual plan that myself and the city laid out. And today we are reproducing those renderings and drawings, and there's not any two houses that are exactly like out there. And that's interesting to me, and we're excited about that. We got to set up a whole city. We got to set up a park system. We have 3 schools on the site. We have a police station on the site, and we have other things coming to the site. And it's really a lot of fun to see the housing going the way it's going right now, and also to the district I'm very excited about, and the commercial activity that's starting around there with the restaurants and retail coming.
The first time I ever even heard about Prairie Trail was from my dad. He said that there's this 1,000-acre development that he's thinking about, and I realized it was going to be a partnership between DRA Properties and the city of Ankeny, and so that was really exciting. We had all kinds of different stakeholders involved, and it was really fun because they talked about what they wanted in their hometown. If they could pick anything that they would want, what would it be? And they would answer, and it was so fun to hear how excited that they were about Prairie Trail. One thing that they did talk about that I think was a mutual theme with all the different stakeholders is that they really wanted a place to go and be and interact with other people in their hometown. And so that's where we came up with the district at Prairie Trail as kind of the meeting and greeting place. I'm so excited when people go to Jethro's or Fong's or Main Street Cafe or any number of the places that we have now, and they tell me how wonderful it was. That's really exciting and rewarding for me. I invite everyone to come out to HomeShowExpo 2015 at Prairie Trail this year, and I hope that you'll come back and be able to enjoy all the things that Prairie Trail has to offer. To see the homes be built in 2008 was so exciting because we had been looking at renderings for so long and talking about, you know, the rich culture that we had in Iowa and studying that really, but then all of a sudden the homes started to come to life. We were just having to sell the vision of Prairie Trail. And it was a lot of renderings, it was a lot of talking. And now it's exciting because people can just actually drive through and get a feel for the development. And it's not as much about selling the vision, although it still is. It's not quite as important as it was in 2008. When we first were meeting with all the different designers, what I was kind of concerned about was what are these houses actually going to look like? And so that's when we created the pattern book. The 4 different architectural styles are arts and crafts, European Romantic, Colonial Revival, and Victorian.
In 2008, we had HomeShowExpo out here, and we had 11 homes go up, and of a different variety of our architectural styles. There were arts and crafts, colonial revival, and a European romantic, all represented in that show. Since that time, we've been able to completely diversify, not only in price point, but also within each theme. And as we forecast now to 2015 in the current HomeShowExpo, you're going to see a few of the architectural styles, lots of arts and crafts coming this year, but you'll get to be able to look at the wide variety within one style. Once you get inside these homes at Prairie Trail, you quickly realize that they're like many other new construction homes. You enjoy the features of new technology like charging stations, but also that open concept feel. So you really take the historical architectural style on the exterior of the home, and as you come into the home, you really focus on how today's families really reside inside the home. So you'll find, expansive islands for people to gather around, and great for throwing, cocktail parties and things of that nature. But also great mud rooms for, when the kids come home from school. And really everything that, traditional family is looking for today, kind of wrapped in a pretty package that we call our architectural styles at Prairie Trail.
The homes today are much different than the homes of yesterday. Although we try and promote the architecture of yesterday, the interior use of the home has changed in so many ways. There is no formal dining room in most homes. There's a flex room where you can go eat or you can go office. The first neighborhood that we created, Presidents, which really has a great name because it did set the precedent. It had 150, 60 different lots, different sizes, different styles. So different sizes and styles of lots promotes different sizes and cost of homes. So we have a mixture of homes that benefits first-time buyers, people that want to move up, people that want to live next to the elementary school, people that want to live next to a high school. I know we've had several families that have started there and moved up once and will probably move up again without leaving Prairie Trail. So they like the place, they want to upsize or downsize, and they just find another place within Prairie Trail to do that. Well, after Precedence, we moved west and called the next little development Precedence West. After Precedence West, we ended up with Points West plats, the 1, 2, and 3. The villas at Prairie Trail is a development on the western boundary of Prairie Trail. The estates, plats 1, 2, and 3, plat 3, where the home show will be this year, is right west of Chautauqua Park. The Heritage is next to the high school. That's why we called it Heritage. It's Ankeny High School, it's got Heritage. We put that right next to it. Across the street is the Heritage Townhomes that Hubble is building. West of that is Heritage Village, which will frame the eastern boundary of the district and be another community or neighborhood of about 60 or 70 homes that will have a whole different vibe.
As Prairie Trail has continued to grow, one of the best evolutions out here has been the diversification of our households. We are at a point right now where we have everybody pretty well covered. We have rentals that you can come in and live in. We have some new brownstones going up that are great for a young professional. We have single family homes that range anywhere in price point from the $250,000s all the way to the $1.3 million and literally everything in between. And that really accommodates families to come in and grab their entry-level home and then move up. We've actually had over a half a dozen families that have moved within the development. Their needs have changed. Either they've needed a larger home or the kids have gone off to college and they're downsizing into their empty nester stage. And so to see them be able to move 2 blocks away and not have to change schools and leave the friends behind that they've made has really been kind of what it's all about. On top of that, as we continue the diversification, we have villas, so definitely catering a little bit more to the empty nester category. And then on to Vintage Hills at Prairie Trail, which is really an assisted living and dementia care project, 44 beds of assisted living and 20 beds of dementia care, but also have recently added on an independent living wing. And so you see everybody kind of from the ages of, infancy all the way up through their last life stages residing at Prairie Trail and enjoying all the amenities that are out there.
Well, I am a civil engineer, and I actually started working on Prairie Trail back in 2006. My role was to work on the civil engineering and look at the master planning, the infrastructure, both the storm and sanitary and water. First of all, look at some of the traffic components. One of my jobs was to look at the ways that stormwater would be managed as the development would proceed. The stormwater gets managed a variety of ways within Prairie Trail. The commercial and some of the higher density areas, There'll be practices that are actually on the site so that the water goes downstream cleaner. It also slows it down. I mean, you're slowly filtering the water and it's slowly entering the stream, much more similar to what would have happened in the natural landscape of the prairie, where when it rained, most of the water went through the landscape, went through the soil, and slowly percolated out as groundwater rather than just rushing off of a paved surface that we see in a lot of typical conditions today. So that kind of is the site level, and then it goes on through the systems to where we have regional practices like the lakes that are near the district, and also we've got a variety of constructed wetlands that do a lot of that kind of regional management of stormwater as well. We've got porous paver systems that are like, some of those are in the districts like the parking lot at Jethro's and behind the Simpson College area that actually allow the water to be collected off the parking lots and filtered down through stone and slowly cooled and treated before it runs off eventually into the lake. One of the things with the porous pavers that are a little different, between the joints, they're not filled up with sand the same way that a lot of other pavers are. The joints are left open. There might be some small rock that's placed in there. That allows the water to filter through those little gaps in the pavement and then go down into the rock below so that it can kind of slowly be treated. It can slowly go downstream rather than just running off the surface of the pavement. One of the challenges we had with designing the lakes was to design something that would allow the big storms to get out. But we also wanted to, in the smaller storms, hold some of that water back so that the water wouldn't just rush out uncontrolled. So we came up with the idea of this staged outlet. So that way, as the water level in the pond rises, it has more and more weir length for it to flow over, so it can manage those little small storms. But then when we have really big storms, basically the outlet just gets bigger and bigger because as the water rises, it spills over more and more panels. So that was kind of, it basically started to get form from the function. And actually that structure won a couple of awards back in 2008 from the DOT and also I think it was the Iowa Ready Mix Concrete Association. So one of the things the fish like is some things that they would normally swim around in a natural pond. Well, to create that artificially can be kind of difficult, but we came up with this idea of putting pencils in a cup. Basically, it was the arrangement of that. They took sections of pipe, they cut them in half, and then they filled them with little hardwood cuttings, branches and things like that, and then they filled the bottom with concrete so that those wouldn't float to the surface, and we called it pencils in a cup because that's what it actually kind of looked like. You can't see that those things are there, the things like the pencils in the cup, but those things make it easier for fish to breed and to thrive and to find places to be. One of the benefits of the natural prairies is they really have very deep root structures. Some of them will go 10, 20 feet into the ground, and they keep the soil nice and loose, so when it rains, the water can run through it like a sponge instead of being heavily compacted that happens in a lot of the urban environments, and even in turf grass. Turf grass only has roots that are a couple inches deep, so it really never penetrates very far into the soil. So another advantage is they're very resistant to erosion. So because the roots go so deep, it's very difficult to pull them out of the ground. If water comes running through, it's hard for them just to get scoured away. And they're very beautiful too. As they mature and they grow and we have greater variety, you see lots of different wildflowers. They provide habitat for bees and butterflies and dragonflies and a lot of things that pollinate other flowers that are very, very important. So they have an important place in the landscape.
Traditional neighborhood design or new urbanism really started grabbing hold in the early 1980s. Peter Cass wrote a book, New Urbanism, and it took hold mostly in the more urban areas. Traditional neighborhood design is targeted toward a neighborhood where people actually live on their front porch instead of their back deck. They interact with each other. They get out of their car and greet people, not go into the house and retreat into their living room. It's come to fruition the last few years. You can know that and see that by driving through the neighborhoods, by talking to the people that live there. And they actually work there, they play there, and that was the whole design behind it.
One of the fundamental qualities of new urbanism is focusing on the quality of life of the residents within the development. So over 200 acres, or about 20% of the ground, was actually donated to green space, parks, and green belts for people to enjoy and use. In addition to that, we'll have over 13 miles of walking trails within the development, and that will add to the already 33 miles of trails that are in Ankeny. But you also have statewide trail access. You know, sometimes we hear that the yards are so small in Prairie Trail, and when you really get back behind the houses and look at the yards, you're going to find that they're similar size to most residential neighborhoods. But in addition to that, you have over 200 acres of park to play in. I find that most of the residents love, and I love personally, is that, you know, you spend a half an hour mowing your yard and then you're out in the park playing.
We sat down and as a group, and tried to name the parks at Prairie Trail. Vintage Lake is right next to Vintage Parkway. Promenade Lake has Promenade Park. Chautauqua Park, the city park, actually the name Chautauqua harkens back to the old Chautauqua revivals that went across the Midwest back in the turn of the century. Another park that was done early on in the development was Dean Park, which is an 1.25 acre park with a small structure, some rubberized play surface, some play equipment, some dancing waters. And it was named after Dennis's father, Dean, and we all take pride in that. Most of the street designs at Prairie Trail have form to them. We try not to do a straight stretch of street that can be awfully boring, even if the architecture's not. So we try and put some shape to it, some geometric form, not only horizontally but vertically, so that as you drive through, you're almost living as you drive. And when you fly over it, the form of what we've designed and what we've built is striking. It's very cool.
One of the big things at Prairie Trail was to try to make streets and corridors that were more walkable, more pedestrian friendly. We wanted this to feel like a neighborhood. We wouldn't want traffic just rushing through. I mean, a lot of suburban areas, the traffic tends to get moving fast. And part of that is you tend to drive not what the speed limit is, but you drive how comfortable you are. So big wide streets make you more comfortable and you tend to drive faster. So a lot of the street sections were downsized just a little bit. I mean, they only tend to be 2 to 4 feet narrower than most traditional streets, but that 2 to 4 feet can make a big difference. State Street was built when there wasn't any development in the area, so it had big wide lanes, big medians, it allowed traffic to move very, very fast. But as Prairie Trail develops, we were going to have residential on one side of the street and this very intimate Main Street commercial center, the district, on the other. So it was very important to everybody to be able to make it safe for pedestrians, to slow traffic down through that area. And one way that they did that is they added on-street parking, they narrowed the lanes, they added some median planters, they did a lot of landscaping in the center to beautify the area, but also to make you take your foot off the gas a little bit and slow traffic down.
People do like to live within an area or a community that's somewhat away from the traffic that is going by. So we did create what we've deemed to be Prairie Trail cul-de-sacs. At points west, plats 2 and 3, we've looped the street to create a small enclosed neighborhood. It's not a cul-de-sac, you just drive around a loop, but it gives you the sense of a small community neighborhood that people look for in a cul-de-sac, which it's pretty cool.
One thing that's really unique about Prairie Trail is the street trees, because in a lot of suburban areas they've pushed the trees out of the right-of-way. In Prairie Trail they wanted these very intimate settings where the homes were closer to the street. And where does that leave room for the trees? Well, ideally they go in the right-of-way. They go between the sidewalk and the street. They help to cool the street, first of all. 15, 20 years from now, we should see these nice, majestic canopies that cross the streets. It can also make pedestrians feel safer because there's something between them and the cars that are driving by.
You know, our residents are probably the most excited when we announce new businesses because they're the ones that can walk and enjoy all of the new amenities that are coming in. We often hear from our residents all of the different types of uses that they want to come to Prairie Trail. You know, oh, I have to drive across town for my coffee shop. And so guess how many people were ecstatic to have Main Street Cafe open because now they can grab a cup of coffee right within walking distance, as a matter of fact. Anani's Salon and Spa was actually one of the first businesses to open up in our Plaza Shops area. Plaza Shops is meant to be kind of a neighborhood community anchored by, a 92,000 square foot Hy-Vee store. You know, the healthy lifestyle component at Prairie Trail has been very important, and we had some business owners recognize that very early on. We had Anytime Fitness with Tiffany Christensen open up, as well as Chris's Hot Yoga with Chris Larison, both in the Plaza Shops area and within walkable distance from HomeShowExpo 2015. One of the first retail uses to come to Prairie Trail was Mint LA Boutique, and she was so excited to come to Prairie Trail to be so close to all the students on the Des Moines Area Community College campus, as well as all of the young, trendy families that are within Ankeny. Having access to good medical care right within our community has been very important for people of all ages. We have all of the other medical services that most people are after. You know, different chiropractors, Eye Care Clinic of Iowa, as well as orthopedics and dermatology and physical therapy, all located right within Prairie Trail. You know, for years I've been talking about the lifestyle at Prairie Trail, but I would say it wasn't until recently, in the last couple of years, that my family actually moved to Prairie Trail that got to experience it and really be out there, you know, for the football tailgating and the trick-or-treating around the neighborhood, or the Easter egg hunts that happen in Dean Park. That is something that you really don't believe happens in a neighborhood these days anymore. It's something about kind of a small town feel. But knowing that the amenities are just, a few steps away from your door. So you have the best of both worlds. It's living in a small town, but being able to walk to the district and enjoying a great dinner in the evenings as well.
Well, I have several friends who live in the Prairie Trail area, and it's so exciting for me to hear about the different activities that they're planning themselves. One thing that we did recently was we provided the location for the Chamber Chill event that was run by the Chamber of Commerce in Ankeny, and I actually ran in it, surprisingly, and it was so fun. The different residents that came out and cheered us on and stood out with signs, and it was just so cute to see. They were excited that something like that was happening in their neighborhood, because that's, I think, why they moved to the neighborhood, is because they wanted events like that.
Another really unique thing about the Prairie Trail development is we came up with a scholarship fund that's unbelievable. It's not in Iowa anywhere else that we know of. My senior year, I received a $300 scholarship from the local Kiwanis Club, and that made me go to college. Basically, because of that, I'm very happy now to hand out several scholarships at the end of the year of people, families that are living in our development.
It's been fun to watch the residents receive over $127,000 from this fund already. If you think of the Prairie Trail Scholarship Fund, I always like to call it a pay it forward program. It actually comes from 0.5% of the sale of all real property in Prairie Trail. The seller pays it. So the idea is that when you're here, you take advantage of it, and when you move on from Prairie Trail, that you pay it forward to the next residents. And so it's a self-sustaining fund and should benefit residents at Prairie Trail for a long time to come.
The Midwestern kids that we get hired here are very good workers, and I like self-motivated people, and so I really like the fact that Iowa kids get educated in Iowa, and then they get a job in Iowa and raise their families in Iowa.
The district has been this vision that we've had for years, and so watching the first buildings come up and really getting to know the first tenants that are going to be located in there, not only from a business standpoint, but the people that are using their businesses as well, has been kind of a fun evolution. Getting to know the operators at Jethro's and Fong's, Simpson, and now Urban Grill, and what they're after and what kind of unique appetite that they can bring to the district is really kind of a fun puzzle to continue to put together. It's important that every person that goes in there really makes a great impact on the overall Ankeny community and Prairie Trail as well. It's pretty amazing to walk down the street and just stand back and look at the first building that we put up, but now seeing the second building framing up, you know, you drive up State Street and you all of a sudden are looking over the rooftop of Jethro's, imagining Urban Grill on the next side of that and thinking, gosh, we really have put this together.
Building 2 is right next to Building 1. It's a little smaller, the architecture is similar, a little less common area, a little more viewscape, because it can look over at the lake for most of the second floor. It'll be a great signature piece on the corner. And it will have the first skywalk in Ankeny. Well, the premise right now is to bring in strong local businesses to target them as the anchor for the district. We will at some point garner some regional and national retail people there. And I don't think it'll be very long before you see that. A couple of the larger jobs have been dealing with Fitness World Prairie Trail, and the fact that they were in town with a facility of about 15,000 square feet, and now they're in a brand new facility, you know, 2 levels with a pool of 32,000 square feet, and loving every minute of it. Simpson just loves their space because they're looking over at Promenade Lake, they're interacting with Jethro's and Fong's below, and Fong's, to get full court press to come out of Court Avenue and come up to the district was just a lot of fun. Well, there's a couple of special projects out there. One of them is the building that C.H. Robinson is in. We designed the building with them in mind. They all love the space, they love their neighbors. They just like being there. If it's a local person that has expanded their business or moved it to a larger and better facility, people in the community know that person, and they applaud what they're doing. And that's evident when the chamber has ribbon cuttings. We revel in the fact that they're doing it at Prairie Trail.
What I've heard with retail development is that generally food uses come first to a development, and I feel like we have a lot of food uses already, and there's quite a few more that we are just very close to announcing. And so that is very exciting. Our next big push is to find really neat local shopping uses, places you could go buy a gift, buy an outfit. I'm so excited for HomeShowExpo 2015 because a lot of people maybe haven't been to Ankeny since the previous home show. Maybe they haven't been to Prairie Trail since 2008. I think they'll be quite shocked, honestly, when they come and they see all that's happened since 2008.